Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We're going to have a great show for you today. Where are all my peeps? Where are all my peeps? Where are all my peeps? Welcome aboard AVQ, Michael Rudnin. Welcome aboard Bridge MCP. Welcome aboard Lee Grant. Welcome aboard Eric Hayes. Great to see all my great folks around. We enjoy being with each other every day, 5 days a week. Actually, now it's 8 days a week. Bridge MCP, welcome back aboard. We had a great conversation on air. You were a star on the airwaves in Houston, Texas, Bridge MCP. So everybody knows your voice now. We know what you sound like in Houston, Texas, Conroe, Texas, Humboldt, Texas, McEnroe, Texas, Galveston, Texas. Everybody heard your voice, my friend, because you were on a 100,000 watt transmitter for which we're trying to raise $150,000 to keep active. Anyway, we're going to have a great program for you today. We're going to talk a little bit about that debate in Pennsylvania because, having a daughter who had 2 strokes, I didn't need that, but I can empathize with, I didn't need to have a daughter who had 2 strokes to empathize with Fetterman. I also know that Fetterman is good. Yeah, of course, Oz won the debate as far as style and everything else. As far as honesty, sincerity, that's a different story. But yeah, I mean, he's a very polished guy. So I'm not going to disagree with you on that, Eric Hayes, at all. But as far as who I want representing, which representative I want in the Senate, it's definitely Fetterman. I want somebody that actually understands. I mean, earlier today I had the county clerk, Harris County clerk, who is running for her second term in the studio with me. And, she was talking about all the things that she was going to do, etc. But one of the things that she said just immediately touched me. She told me about having been raised by a single mother and not being able to get to the county clerk, how difficult it would have been to go to the county clerk office, etc. And now that she is the county clerk of this county of over 4.7 million people, which is under her control, she keeps the records for all these people. She could empathize that there were people who it would be difficult for them to leave work. So she showed how you make government work. Not the government telling the people exactly how and when, but understanding how people live and adjusting her offices around the county to satisfy the needs of the people in Houston. In the Houston and the metropolitan area, probably 50 cities. I don't know how many cities are in Harris County. But I mean, as she's saying these things, these are the things that are actually activating me because I hear so often that you leave it up to the government. The government don't work. The government is inefficient. When the reality is all of those are tropes. If you want to look at efficiency, you don't look at the private sector. If you want to look at who's going to take your money or milk your money for the maximal profit, then you look at the private sector. Look at what they look at the $1,000 hammer and all that kind of stuff. I always found it funny when they used to advertise. Do you want to pay $100 for this toilet seat or the $100,000 hammer and all of that? And then you ask yourself the question, wait a minute. Who is charging that? Is that the government charging that? Or is that the private sector ripping the government off by giving them a bill for that and then they paying it? You see, it's all in how you look at it. And what the corporations have been very good at is allowing you to, is forcing you to look at things incorrectly. When there's inefficiency in government, check out what the private sector, the private corporations, the contractors, see how the contractors are billing the government. If you have a doubt of that, ask my brother Roberto Lewis, who was in Iraq, and he saw them hire a lot of foreigners to serve the food, but at the same time, each plate of the food costs more than 20 or 30, but I don't remember exactly what it was, but a ridiculous amount. It's these guys ripping the government off, you know? But then we said, it's the government bad. No, it's the thieves that are bad. If you go ahead and create a contract to the government, and the government says, and all of you come to contract to the government, and all the prices are high because you're ripping the government off, whose fault is it? Whose fault is it? So anyhow, it was great having Tanisha in the studio. Tanisha Hedspeth, who is actually the county clerk, and she explained all the things that she did to make government work. And one of the premises of the show today was that for all those who think government is inefficient, talk to somebody like Tanisha Hedspeth, who has made that office a very efficient office that serves the people. But also, if you hear any politician talking about how inefficient government is or how bad government is or the government can't do anything good, immediately make sure that that politician never gets elected. Because a politician shouldn't be saying government's not good. A politician is supposed to be saying, I'm going into we the people to make we the people better, to serve we the people better. After all, we are not chained by profit, right? We are not in chains by having to answer the shareholders to make sure they make money. We are answerable to provide services to the people who hire us, Americans. That's who it is. So I want us to change. I want us to change the narrative. I want us to forget the narrative. I want us to forget that self-serving narrative that the corporations like to put out there that government is inefficient. It's a lie. Government, on most things that government should control, is much more efficient than the private sector. And there's a mathematical reason why that is the case. Let's use an example for the government, and I'll give you the exceptions, right? Let's just use serving food in Iraq, right? You pay soldiers not a very high salary, right? You can have soldiers that are, in fact, in the early days, soldiers used to be cooks and they did all the work. They supported the entire concept. So you would have the soldiers that were cooks, the soldiers that put the food out, the soldiers that did all these different things, right? So a meal only costs what it cost. Now, we have contractors that come in and say, okay, we will serve the food to the military guys and we will charge them $30 a plate. That $30 a plate costs a lot more than doing it all in-house. There are exceptions to the rule where the private sector is better, right? Let's give an example. Winter comes about 3 months a year, right? And you don't want to tie up a truck and all of that sits in cold storage for 4 months and then come out and have to clean streets. So, I mean, if you have the private sector, different people that they will bring their machines out that they can use to plow snow and all of that on the 4 months that it need plowing. And then in the other months, those same pickup trucks may go work on a farm or go do something else. It is more efficient to do that than to have a government that has a whole big fleet that stays idle 8 months out of the year. So there are trade-offs and there are reasons when to do it, but that's not how our system works. We like to give a blanket statement that somehow government is less efficient than the private sector. When profit in the private sector, when it's things that needs to be done for the government, profit becomes an expense. Let's give a perfect example. Let's look at Medicare, standard Medicare. The only expense standard Medicare has is to process the bill. That's their expense. Manage a database, process the bill, and also whatever informational material they have to send you. That's the only expense Medicare has, right? To provide service. Insurance companies now, if you leave it to private insurance, they all have to have a marketing expense. They all have to have buildings. They all have to have executives. Each individual insurance company has to have a president, a vice president, a COO, a computer system to manage your database, advertising budgets to try to get their business away from other people. All these expenses usually turn out to be 20 to 30% of the entire bill. Okay? Now, the government has none of that expense, nor does it have to pay exorbitant salaries to the CEO. In the case of these guys, they make millions that should be going, and those millions aren't just money they're making. That is money out of your pockets, right? When you see a CEO for an insurance company making millions, do remember that that is a part of the premium you are paying. This isn't rocket science. Ideology, indoctrination is dangerous to your present economy, to your personal economy. So please, people, I beg of you to understand the concepts here. Don't allow them to snow you. Bridge MCP says, I watched Hartman and did some research. Thanks, I understand it better now. So she understand what we were speaking about. Bridge called in to get some information on Medicare Advantage. That was Pop, not Liz. And no, I don't like her views, but love she stood up to your leader. Absolutely. Okay, let's see what else we have here before I go to the first video. Eric Hayes says, Egberto, no matter what party, if someone spends money earmarked for COVID on their own party's interests like software, etc., they deserve to lose office and be prosecuted. Let's stop right there. Do you really believe that? Then here's the biggest fraud that occurred recently. We had COVID money sent to Texas, and Governor Abbott used that COVID money to go to the border and do things that the state government is not responsible for with immigration. So then I think you want Governor Abbott to be prosecuted. Is that correct? You want Governor Abbott to be prosecuted. Now you says, Hidalgo has done this 500,000 and won't answer the public records request. This is why government is not accountable or wasteful. No, actually, Hidalgo, the reason Hidalgo has a candidate running against her is because all the people gave $4 million to her opponent. Developers did. Look it up. Not hard to do. Not hard at all to do. So folks, Eric likes to come with information, but my brother always comes with either wrong information, partial information, uncalculated information. Like I said, if he wants somebody who take dollars that are earmarked for COVID and use it elsewhere, then look at Governor Abbott, because that is exactly what Governor Abbott did. Okay? Abbott and our also Attorney General, they are all complicit in stealing money under the parlance of what that Eric Hayes just said. So let's be clear here, or let's be fair here. If you're going to say certain things, be consistent. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Eric Hayes, did you get this mad when Ron DeSantis sent migrants to Martha's Vineyards? Of course he didn't. Your partisan antics are so transparent. That is true, Eric. I am a true left-wing progressive guy, but I'm very fair. And if you win a point, you win a point. Unfortunately, that's not how you operate. So I think come into our program, I hope more of that will kind of grow on to you, sir. And I say that with utter love and respect. Or when you look at efficiency, compare overhead and profit margins. Thank you. The thing about it, Michael, is profits and overhead trumps the small percentage for a government program. Even if there's waste, it doesn't add up to profit plus additional expenses. It's amazing. But try to explain that, and people have been so indoctrinated otherwise. All right, from Michael, Business Insiders, Halliburton KBR charged $45 for a six-pack of Coke and $100 to wash a $3 load of laundry. In 2005, the Pentagon found that KBR had failed to account for $1.8 billion for feeding and housing troops, which included $12 million in meals which were never served. They're thugs. I mean, the petty thief that steals a candy bar in a store that sometimes loses their life from stealing a cigarette or something in a store doesn't have the impact that a Halliburton thug has. Yet, nobody says anything, right? Maywood, welcome to Politics Done Right. Robert P. Davenport, welcome, my brother. How are you doing today? Lee Grant says, Egberto wants a new narrative of bigger government. I do want government as big as needed and bigger than any corporation. I don't want any corporation to be a corporation whose loyalty is to shareholders and executives to have any power over we the people. So I cop to that, sir. I do cop to that. All right, Peggy Lopez is in the house. She says, hi all, feeling more secure about this year's election after being trained to be an election worker. Went to see how the election could be hacked by GOP, mostly safe. Yep. All right, Bridge MCP says, Halliburton and Cheney, war profiteers, a chief fight to keep their wallets fat. Halliburton stock has risen 200% since the invasion of Iraq 3.5 years ago. David Lesser, its CEO, made over $40 million. One person. What the hell did he do to get $40 million? That's the point. Let's see. Maywood says, I may or may not be here tomorrow. Managed to change a doc appointment to tomorrow morning. Seems the appointment was the same time. I'm supposed to do jury duty. And since I was to get the vaccine, flu booster, I love that my people love my show. I love you guys. You know that. Love you all. Bri says, Egberto, I read that one already. Let's see what else we got here. That was pop nuts. Let's see. Eric Hayes says, letting others have free stuff is part of the tax we pay, same as the price of insurance. Again, that's where you're wrong. Okay, let's give an example to that. There are people that are on food stamps. There are people that are on these different programs, right? A lot of these people are working. The corporation still just don't pay them enough to to have a livable wage. So let's get a little bit deeper. If you work a 40-hour week and you still have to get support from the government, what that really tells me is that we are subsidizing the private sector because we have allowed them to pay less than a living wage. And to make up for not paying a living wage, we, the people, have to pay our taxes to support aid to those people. It's another way of corporate welfare. It's just corporate welfare that seemingly is going to people. You see, that's how it works. They want you to feel less about those people, so the corporations can pay less, knowing that there's a support system in the government to support them. But in effect, that's an indirect way that we are supporting, or we are actually giving welfare, not to the person getting that money after they've been working, but to the corporations. I wish people understand this. That's why we're here. Lee Grant says, we need Abbott to help control the border. Beto wants to take down the fence in El Paso. Hey, why not? You know what's so funny about it? Well, I don't want to change the subject to that right now. All right, continuing. We got debate Maywood. Let's see what we got. Robert Davenport says, Egberto, law enforcement is for use against designated targets, not for the sacred cows and icons of the right-wingers. There you go. You're absolutely right, sir. Bigger government, yes. If that means massive infrastructure investment, I want to build up our nation, and we are the envy of the world. I agree. Lee Grant says, who has lost their life over stealing a candy bar? That was not a direct statement. I mean, that was more a hyperbole. I'll cop to that. But stealing a cigarette, yes. Michael Brown lost his life for what people thought. Well, it wasn't a cigarette. I think they said he stole. I don't remember what it was. I think it was a cigarette actually. But also, the guy up in New York also got chokehold and died from selling a cigarette. It's amazing. Okay. Eric Hayes says election bettors have picked most outcomes, including the one you love, 2020. What do they say? We'll click and see. Look, I tell you what. It doesn't matter. Because the election hasn't happened yet. And we have a lot of time to get our people out to vote. And that's what a lot of us are doing right now. Walking and getting folks out to vote. Daniel Ledo, welcome aboard. Daniel says, I think it's a shame that thousands signed up for student loan forgiveness and have had their dreams of other people paying for their decisions dashed by white guys in robes. No, other people are not paying for their decisions. Their education actually helped you, Ledo. But we have also allowed folks to be ripped off. So that's another subject. I'll leave that alone. Michael said, Daniel Ledo, are you supportive of student loan forgiveness for all? I would applaud you if you were sincere in that belief and not just trying to score points after Biden. Bridge MCP says, student loans, these other people are the rich being taxed, not regular people. Robert Davenport says, why is it people who rage against big government are so silent about big oil, big pharma, big banksters? The record court profits are okay, but cannot dare raise the minimum wage to live in. I mean, it's the conditioning, Robert Davenport. It's the condition. It's indoctrination. It's not understanding reality. It's actually, it is a slave mentality, Robert Davenport. It is that our minds, so many people's minds are still in chains, enslaved. That's what we try to fight, Davenport. Thank you for bringing that up. That is so important. Liz Cheney is a true conservative. Her father, however, was an opportunist and, of course, a neoliberal, according to Maywood, which is true. Lee Grant says the government will need to get big enough to control and administer nationalized energy, healthcare, transportation, manufacturing, food. No, I don't want it to do all of that, but I do want it to control healthcare, energy, and etc. Again, Lee Grant, yes, I agree. I don't have a problem with big government at all. I have a problem with big corporations. I don't have a problem with big government. Big government is we the people. I love it. Eric Garner was selling Lucy cigarettes before he got choked and killed by a dirty cop. Exactly. Eric Garner was his name. Daniel Ledo says, STFU, you don't get to tell anyone what a true conservative is. Yes, we do. Just like you get to tell folks who a liberal is, we can actually discern who is conservative. Whatever you want, you always want to be the one, Brother Daniel, to be telling things. But when it comes back at you, you can't take it. No, Liz Cheney is a true conservative by definition. If you define what a conservative is like, Liz Cheney fits the bill. If you decide what a traitor is like, what a fascist is like, Donald Trump fits the bill. Anyhow, let's get busy right now because what I want to play for you is the first video. Crime rate, crime rate, crime rate. Another way of how we must fight the crime rate.
I want to ask you, though, about crime, because that seems to be, of all the issues, it's the one that the glittery object that Republicans are most intent on making the centerpiece of their closing argument here. We heard it a number of times in key Senate debates this evening. And yet, if you look at the statistics, and I don't know why this isn't on a mug somewhere as a fundraising tool, the top 5 states with the highest homicide mortality rates are all red states. Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Missouri, Arkansas. How are Democrats playing defense on this? How is this not a stat that is mentioned every single time Republicans want to talk about crime?
Trump tried it in 20. It goes back to the Willie Horton ad in 1988. They did it against Barack Obama. Trump tried it in 2020. Of course, they're doing here. And as you said in your opening, it's crime is the topic, but it's a proxy for race. There's a lot of racially coded language here. A lot of it's pretty explicitly racist. And so the way Democrats should handle this, and some campaigns like the Fetterman campaign have done this very well, is to take it on, to state what you are for, that you will stand, that you have fought crime in your previous job, you will fund responsible, accountable policing. And then what you do is you pivot, because the trap in all of these things is something President Obama used to say is you don't play their game, you call out their game. So now talk about why they are trying to use crime to scare you, to distract from their extremist agenda that wants to infringe on your personal freedoms, cut your Medicare, cut taxes for corporations. And so you have to take it on, state what you were for. Do not let them incorrectly and inaccurately frame Democrats as being soft on crime. Call them out. And in some states, as you point out, you can do that very aggressively against the Republicans who have overseen steep increases in crime over the last couple of years.
You know, Republicans are so, I'm talking about Republican politicians, not my Republican brothers and sisters. Republicans are so transparently projectional. In other words, everything that they project, generally, it's on them. They love to talk about election fraud. All the people that we've caught with election fraud right now, Republicans. They like to talk about crime and being hard on crime. All the states where we have proven that their policies are failures, because, again, the top 5 states with the highest murder rates, again, are Republican-run governments. And if you want to say, well, that is going to be in democratic cities, not true. Because if you look at Oklahoma, which has a crime rate twice that of New York and much greater than California, what you find is that Oklahoma's 2 major cities, Tulsa and Oklahoma City, are governed by Republicans. So every way you cut it, Republicans are a failure on crime. The guns that they've unleashed on us, the murder, the mass murderers that are out there using guns that they refuse to take off the streets. When we had policies to prevent people from buying these AK-15s and all these weapons of war, when we had policy to protect against that, we didn't have this type of mass murdering. But again, you have to make the argument assertively. Republican politicians create crime. Republican politicians are the arbiters of crime. Republican politicians have no clue how to take care of crime, because all they want to do is unload guns made by their benefactors onto the market. And that is the message that you've got to put out there consistently. And when it comes to inflation, the Republican politicians and the neoliberals are the ones who created offshoring, who created just-in-time inventory, who ensured that we don't have that we don't have the policies to protect us against climate change. All those things can be directly attributable to Republican ideology and neoliberal orthodoxy. That is what we need to put out there as over and over again. Never allow the upper hand to be won by people who are nothing more than projectionists. We project who we are on you and then tell you that projection is ugly, that projection is bad. Remember that. Projectionists always project who they are, the evil they represent onto you, and then try to get you to defend who they are in you. Don't accept it. Don't take it. Michael Rudnin says conservatives talk law and order because they know police are the business and end systemic racism against minorities. Conservatives want more crackdown against those they want to otherize. Actually, I think you mean otherize, not just other. But you're absolutely right. And Yale, coal, oil, and natural gas received $5.9 trillion in subsidies in 2020, or roughly $11 million every minute, according to a new analysis by the International Monetary Fund. Oh, you mean it's not a partisan organization that said that? Oh, no, it's a monetary fund. Not that I like those guys, but you know. All right, let's continue. Third way, per capita murder rates were 40% higher in states won by Donald Trump than those won by Joe Biden. And guess what? There is the example. There is the... But you know, why don't Democrats go out there and say it more? Just like how Gavin Newsom did when he came on to when he spoke on what's her name's show. We got to do Alex Wagner's show. All right. Continue. Daniel Edo says, so Hillary Clinton can come out 2 years before a presidential election, throwing shade at SCOTUS and preemptively set up a big lie all the Democrats can believe when Biden loses. Huh? What are we talking about, Lee? You're going to have to help me out there, brother. Daniel Edo, I don't understand what you're saying. Okay. Bleach MCP says, we have been told over and over again how Democrats are soft on crime. We have been told how Democrat cities and states have higher crime rates. How murder is rampant in Democratic-controlled cities and states. The Fox Network, Newsmax, and other right-wing propaganda machines have blamed Democrats for rising crime rates so often and for so long that many of us believe the narrative and have made it a part of knowledge, except it is wrong. On one hand, it is accurate, repeating, on one hand, it is accurate that the murder rate in the U.S. has gone up at an alarming rate. On the other hand, despite the right-wing media narrative to the contrary, this is a problem that affects Republican-run cities and states more than Democratic areas, and there's a reason why. In fact, 2020, the per capita murder rate were 40% higher in states won by Donald Trump than those won by Joe Biden, according to Washington think tank Third Way. Think about that. In 8 of the 10 states with the highest murder rates in 2020, Americans voted for the Republican presidential nominee in every election this century. Therefore, the fact that Democrats don't put this on cups and just make this a national, just put the national disgrace that is Republican politicians for your safety drives me crazy. And it really comes down to the elitist support, the elitist consultants that these Democrats use. They know nothing about living in the barrios, the ghettos, or Appalachia. They know nothing about how these places are. Otherwise, they would have put this out in good, concise messaging. But again, the corruption of these think tanks and corruption of these elitist advisors, etc., and the good old boy network. And again, and I'm critiquing the progressive side now. I'm critiquing the Democratic side now. These guys don't know what it's like to live within the community and the problems within the communities. So the ads that they could do that hit those communities and engage those communities and all other communities who would be the allies of these communities. They don't do it. They don't do it. That's why we need the grassroots. That's why we need politics done right. That's why we need TYT. That's why we need all these other organizations that are saying to hell with with the party. We are going to go out there and put the message out. And that's why I also ask you to keep us funded. And that's what I'm going to do right now. Please go ahead and hear this out. Politics done right depends on you to keep doing what we do. What do? We make sure to keep, number one, the internet seeded with blogs and information to counter the right and to present what progressives represent for the benefit of us all to everybody so that it's not misread, misled by any other entity. We make sure and populate that internet with blogs, with videos, with all these other things to make sure that we are informed and to counter everything that you normally hear that are lying at the right. We also make sure to create articles in magazines, articles in newspapers all around the country to ensure, again, that our message gets out there. Last but not least, we also write books. As you see it, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom, How to Make America Utopia, are two of the many books that I've written on these issues. So please support us in one of many ways. Numero uno, you can support us at PayPal, either one time or monthly. Go to politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. You can support us on Patreon. That is politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. Patreon is spelled Patreon. You can support us by becoming a part of our YouTube channel, going to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube, or you can support us in many other forms that you can find at politicsdoneright.com/support. Be sure to visit our store, politicsdoneright.com/store, and get our books at
politicsdoneright.com/books.
All right, folks. So thank you for listening to that. This is important. I ask you kindly again, please. I put a lot of links in the chat. Please find a link that you find the best way that you can to support us. We need some. For those of you who have the wherewithal, we need some patrons. That's politicsdoneright.com/patreon. If you can become a patron at whatever cost, I think you got a $2.99 cost, $4.99 cost, whatever you can. Please help support this program. We need it more so now than ever. You can give us by PayPal, politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. We really, really need your support. I cannot tell you how much we need your support. We cannot do this without you, and I intend to continue being a source of truth, a source of inspiration to get people inspired in themselves, because we are the ones. You remember when Obama said we are the ones we're waiting for? I mean, it sounded corny, but it's true. We are the ones we've been waiting for. All right, let's go ahead. Bridge MCP says, citing the threat of escalating violence, Penn State University canceled a campus event featuring Proud Boys founder, Given McInnes. Monday night, pepper spray hung in the air as protesters and counter-protesters confronted each other, and helmeted police wielded batons on campus. The event had an 8 p.m. start, but 7:15, the university said the police department deemed the event too dangerous. It was abrupt reversal of the school, which had condemned the views of McInnes and another far-right figure, Alex Stein, even as it said free speech concerns required it to host a student or organize a college. Penn State had condemned McInnes' rhetoric. The Proud Boys are a hate group, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. And while the machines, while the machine rhetoric, the Proud Boys alleges the purport to project white nationalism. I tell you what, folks. I tell you what. I don't want to hurt anybody's speech. These universities where progressives go ahead and fight against having these people speak, I think is a wrong thing. I think you let these racists speak. I think you let these thuggish insurrectionists, traitors speak. Let them go into the auditorium, sit down and listen to them, and then in an organized fashion, confront their words with intellect. That's what you do. We are not them. We are not scared of the truth. Robert Davenport says, Republic clowns creates inflation by allowing corps to attain unfettered greed in price setting and tax dodges. You hit the nail on the head. Melanie Keelan is in the house. Good afternoon, Melanie. Thanks for being here with us. You hit the nail on the head, sir. You hit the nail on the head. Lee Grant says, Minnesota Post, crime was a top concern for many likely Minnesota voters leading up to the election and is a major focus of political campaigns. How much it will mobilize voters is an open question. It will mobilize voters. The question is, what's the solution that you want? Inflation right now is global, and we are the lowest, one of the lowest. Canada is lower than we are. We are at 8%. Canada is at 7%. Let's see what else we have here before I go to the last video. Daniel Edo says, prepare for Democrats freak out and election denying hypocrisy in 2024. There won't be a freak out. If I don't do my job efficiently and correctly, and all the people in the space that I am in right now, if we don't do our job, and we allow ourselves to be taken over by a fascist sect, we would have deserved what we got. I mean that from the depths of my heart. I want to go out there and my job here is as an activist journalist, a progressive activist journalist. So I put out a lot of material. When I say I put out a lot of material, I mean I put out a lot of material. I want to show you guys something. In fact, I just went ahead. Bridge MCP, thank you so kindly. Keep getting the word out and pointing out the wrong information out there, and it's a chat. Thank you so kindly very much. Bridge MCP just gave us a super chat. Anybody else who wants to join Bridge in the super chats, please feel free to do so as well. I really love that I get the support from my peeps. I really love that I get the support from my peeps. I couldn't do it without your support. I honestly couldn't. And I just want to give you guys a measure of what we do here, okay? Let me go ahead and put this on the screen. Here you have, this is our county chair, our county clerk at the studio at KPFT today before I ran back here, okay? That is the corporate shrill. But here is what I wanted to, most of all, what I want to show. This is a newsletter that I sent out, right? What I want to show you in this newsletter, at the bottom of the newsletter, I have a link. And, people want to know, well, what I want to show you in this newsletter. Are you really working? Are you doing all these things that you do? There is a list of the 19 major places that we blog, send material, make sure that we spread it through the internet, so that we can populate the internet space that is being placed with a ton of misinformation with information. And here we go. What are the places where we blog and put information? YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, our blog at Egberto Willies, my books that are at Amazon and elsewhere, the PDR podcast at Anchor.fm, Politics and Right, the Egberto on the Run, off the record on Anchor as well, Medium, Substack, Daily Kos, Op-Ed News, Common Dreams. In fact, Common Dreams have a few of my articles as well as Alternet, Progressive Christianity, Tumblr, Pinterest, and that's not naming all of them. Why am I putting that out there? We work hard to get the message out that the mainstream media is not doing. It says Politics Done Right seeds the internet. Yeah. We work extremely hard. Let me put that link in there for anyone who wants to see it. We work extremely hard to make sure that we get some information out. And again, Bridge MCP, you are an immaculate supporter, and I want to thank you so much. Not only a supporter financially, but a supporter in your voice. When you called in about Medicare Advantage today on KPFT, and I want you to listen to this well, Bridge. You changed the course of the discussion on the station. And what you made sure is for the entire listenership in the Houston area, the Houston metropolitan area, as well as those listening on the internet and those listening on Twitter, those listening on our own feed at KPFT, you educated a lot of people. You made sure, especially now that they're watching every single day Medicare Advantage, trying to capture them. Your real life story, Dwayne Bradley's real life story, and the real life stories of the many people that we talk to, that Bridge made a difference. You likely saved the lives of quite a few people who would likely have been, and I don't know which ones would and which one would not, but I can tell you one thing. Medicare Advantage will try the best not to pay for procedures so that they can maximize profits for their own administrators and their own supporters and their own shareholders. When you guys write these notes in this chat, when you all force me to talk these issues on all those places that I labeled, your voice got heard. Your voice got heard. No, Bridge, it's not just I just asked a question. You had the nerve to call into a live show and ask the question that thousands are asking. That's what I'm talking about. I tell my daughter that story every day as well. It's not about saying, I am just doing this. It's about saying, I am actually doing something. Very important. Very, very important. We had several callers last week as well. And by the way, I'm not just telling you this. I told those people who called in when I had the Medicare Advantage show at KPFT, I told them the same thing. Because I want people engaged. I want people to... The plutocracy wins in America because people acquiesce. They're quiet. They acquiesce to whatever they give. They remain quiet. But those people who speak out, they make a difference. Breach says, Michael Rudnin, Daniel Ado, it's no lie that Republicans are trying to destroy free and fair elections. You might want to actually read your own article, see what was said, see what the facts are. Maywood says, Eric Hayes, prices up because of corporate policies. Absolutely right. Peggy Lopez says, after studying the lead up to the death camps, I do not believe that we deserve what the GOP wants for America because the corporations control the American government, not the people. And that's where we got to take it back. While we still have one person, one vote, we've got to take it back. Today I'm excited, and I've been talking since KPFT, and my voice is starting to get a little, but anyhow. Let's go ahead and go to the last video with Liz Cheney. I really want to hear Liz Cheney. Again, I'm diametrically opposed to her.
I don't want to presume anything, but is your number one issue threats to democracy as a voter?
It is. I think that when you look at the extent to which we're facing challenges now that threaten to unravel the fundamental institutions and structures of our election system and process, that is the basis and the foundation on which we can have all of these other debates. So it absolutely is the number one issue. On
the Wyoming ballot, we know of at least 2 election deniers, the woman that defeated you in the primary and the a gentleman by the name of Chuck Gray running for Secretary of State. I assume they did not earn your vote?
No, they will not. And I think no one of any party should be voting for people who are election deniers. And I think we have to be clear what it means to be an election denier. It means, in the case, for example, of Carrie Lake and Mark Fincham in Arizona, they have both said, we've looked at all of the facts, we've looked at the results of the election in 2020, we've looked at the law, we've looked at the fact that the courts all ruled against Donald Trump, we've looked at the audits and the recounts. We are willing to ignore all of that. And we are saying we would not have certified that election. They're telling you that they'll only certify an election they agree with. And that there's not much graver threat to the democracy than you can imagine than that.
A lot of Republicans in the last 3 weeks that I would describe as empathetic to what you've been doing have suddenly found themselves deciding, hey, party over country. What do you make of those decisions?
You know, I think they are really indefensible decisions. And, I've said I think that Glenn Youngkin has done a good job as governor of Virginia. But nobody should be out advocating for the election of people who will not honor the sanctity of our elections process. And, people who do that are, in fact, putting politics ahead of the Constitution and ahead of the country.
I've noticed Dan Cox, who's the Republican nominee in Maryland, it's been pretty easy for Republicans to ignore him. It seems like it's been harder for them to ignore Carrie Lake in Arizona, battleground state. Even we've seen some even campaign with Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania. This win it, whatever it takes to win, winning trumps everything. How do you blow that up in the party?
Well, I think you've got to remind people that everybody has an obligation to defend the Constitution, an obligation to do what's right. And so right now you've got a lot of Republicans in particular. Democrats do the same thing. It just happens that our candidates are more dangerous right now. But you have got a lot of Republicans who are saying, you know what, I'm going to ignore the threat posed by a former president who attempted to use force to overturn an election, to stop the count of electoral votes. I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to ignore these people who embrace him. I'm going to ignore the danger, and I'm just going to focus on the near term. Is the Republican Party going to prevail?
Why do you think more Republicans can't look? I just came back from Georgia. Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, Brian Kemp, the governor, both beat back Trump challenges. Now, they didn't use anti-Trump rhetoric to do it, but they won. And they look like they're going to be in better shape. Why do you think other Republicans can't look at that and say, oh, it's good politics, not bad politics?
You know, my hope is that ultimately our party will come back to that. I think it may take a couple of election cycles to do that, but I think, you know, people need to understand they're not bystanders. They're accountable for their actions. The people who are excusing and appeasing and enabling are also responsible for the impact of that. And words matter, and when you support and endorse somebody who said that they only will honor results if they win, then you are responsible and accountable for that.
We spend a lot. Absolutely so. You are responsible. Robert P. Davenport says, way to go, Bridge MCP. Woohoo! Egberto, you have a great PDR posse, left, right, and in between. Absolutely so. Let me tell you something. I talk about all of you at KPFT. In fact, if Bridge would tell you, she listened today, and I said, we have our PDR posse on the internet, and we're having our PDR posse at KPFT because now you guys, if anybody who wants to have a voice, meaning that we talk, you can call in. And what we have is like, let me give an example. Bridge MCP called in and talked about Medicare Advantage today. Now Bridge, that is going to be a segment on its own that's going to be making it out there, where she asked the question because it was so informative, that particular segment that she created. That's what we're going to be doing, using these segments from you all to help move the message forward. We have a great posse, left, right, and in between. Absolutely so. Egberto, KPFT talked about is we are known. Yes, we are known. Daniel says, I love Daniel. Daniel, you know, let me tell you something, Daniel. You can say all these things, right? But that's not where your heart is, bro. I've spoken to you. I've seen you. I know you. Don't forget that. So inside of this room, you can be the Mr. Tough guy and all that kind of stuff. I know all of my right-wingers in here. You guys are great people too. You know, I know that. I can't wait for November 2nd. It will be the beginning of American taking back power from postmodern Marxists. The heavy hand of righteousness will sweep the filth from America. That's from Daniel Ladeau. Do you think I think Daniel Ladeau really cops to all of that? Hell no. All right, let's see what else we got here. Mike Cisak says, I'm shocked that those in Martha's Vineyard was able to get the military involved when illegals came to their place. Nobody is illegal, brother. Do you want to be called? Do you want your ancestors who came here either on the Mayflower or shortly thereafter to be called that? Come on, man. Let's not call people illegal. Let's have a little bit more. Come on, okay? Come on, try it. Try being nice. You'll find out that being nice actually feels good. Feels good. Don't hate others. It feels good. And let me tell you, I'll go that another time. Let's see what else he said. Ledo to CSAC. Should the current political paradigm continue, the military will be coming for you. Really? I don't think so. You have to remember the military is your brother, your sister, and everybody else. You know? Daniel says, Mike CSAC says, Martha's claimed to be a shelter for illegals until illegals came to town. Then they couldn't move fast enough to ship them out. So hypocritical, NIMBY, not in my backyard. You know what, Mike? I'm going to tell you something. There's so much truth to what you just said. Unfortunately, it's not only progressives that believe in NIMBY. It's just, NIMBY is a class thing. Let me give you the perfect example, and this time I'm going to hit progressives. Supposedly the Kennedys are progressives, right? They wanted to build a wind farm off of whatever place they live off of, that rich people's place they live off of. They wanted to build a wind farm. And guess who quietly stopped or prevented or wanted that wind farm not built? Yep. If I recall, I think I recall this from several years ago. If I have the wrong family, correct me, but I think it was the Kennedys, rich folk, who said, not in my backyard. So CSAC, like I tell you, if you're right about something, brother, you're right about something. Bridge MCP says, great to hide behind a screen. Texas boy, come to New York and see what's up. If you got the guts. Come on, Bridge. Hey, let me tell you, you guys better don't mess with my girl. Robert Davenport says, fighting illegal immigration since 1492. That's a good one. Robert Davenport wins the joke of the day. All right, New York. Mike Cesar said New York and Chicago, it's even handle a few hundred of 1,000 illegals, but expect Texas and other border states to handle 100K each month. Actually, there's some truth to that as well. I think that Texas has a lot of people they're handling, but let's be clear here. There is a border infrastructure to handle people coming over the border. It's been overwhelmed. You're right. But I think having just a few folks in New York, let's say they have 100,000 with us having several more than that, and how difficult it is, it will probably put more effort into doing more at our border. But it's not more at our border only, but it's more within the countries where these people are coming from. Like, we didn't have to starve Cuba. We didn't have to starve. The Venezuelans because they have somebody we don't like in not Hugo Chavez, but you know who I'm talking about. We didn't have to do any of that. Okay, so let's be clear here. We didn't have to do that. My right wingers had some pretty good points today. And, and the reason I wanted to let it be known that you guys had Hyannis Sport. Thank you, Lee Grant. The reason I wanted you guys to know that you had good points is I wanted to validate that absolute statements are just that, absolute, right? NIMBY is an absolute statement with people, whether right or left, class, it's a class thing, right? They put dumps in poor neighborhoods. They cut the mountains off in Appalachia and allow the mercury to fall into the rivers, right? That is bad. And guess what? It affects Appalachians, which are generally Republicans, and it affects Latinos and blacks in the ghettos, barrios, and everywhere else they exist in these areas because, again, all of them suffer from the same thing. Their socio-economic status. So whether you're white, black, blue, Asian, I don't care what you are. If you're in a socio-economically depressed area, they don't mind using you as a dumping ground. And what I wish my brothers on the right, Mike Cisak, Ledo, and all the others would realize is that they're putting us against each other so that they can do just that. Someday, we're going to come together. The time of being nice to seditious traitors like Egberto is over. I am not the same guy you knew. I have been radicalized by the insanity of Democrats. That tends to happen when folks try to destroy your culture and country. Daniel, nobody's trying to destroy your culture, Daniel. That's what they're telling you. I forgot where you're from. Give me your culture, Daniel. What are you, German? Daniel Ledo. No, you're French. I think you're of a French origin, right, Daniel? Correct me if I'm wrong, but correct me. Come on in. You should also call me if you call me at KPFT sometime. So you don't know me, Egberto. Yes, I'm a nice guy, true enough, but I have lost my tolerance for your progressive BS. No, you have not. Because the progressive BS that you think you've lost the time for is a figment of your imagination. It's a caricature that others have made to you. Mike Cisak says a very good friend of my family was raped and then her car stolen from a group of illegals. When I hear Democrats claiming having illegals is a good thing, it's frost burns. Again, how many other rapes have occurred? I'm sorry. Boy, was that insensitive on my part. All right. I am sorry for your friend of your family who was raped and stole what is it when somebody steals from you and robbed by somebody who was undocumented. I'm sorry for that. But that happens millions of times every year in America, not done by undocumented. In fact, undocumented people are much less likely to commit any kind of crime than born Americans, and that's a fact. Please look it up. Bridget, your stuff is too long for me to read right now. Put it out again tomorrow, please. I got to get out of here. Please, folks, please support the program. Thank you, Bridge MCP. Thank you, Robert Davenport, for your great support. I could not possibly do this without you. love you love you all for, making sure this can continue to happen. Please remember to support us at PayPal. Let me go ahead and put the PayPal in there one more time. And again, I have a new chapter. Of my book. So please go to politicsdoneright.com/tribulations. politicsdoneright.com/tribulations, and it'll get to the book. You can read it for free because Amazon is giving a lot of free tokens to read the books. So please go to politicsdoneright.com/tribulations. Sign up. If you don't have an Amazon account, just sign up. They'll give you tokens to read the book. And please support our paid podcast, politicsdoneright.com/podcast paid. Folks, I could not do this without you. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.